Hi, I'm Damien and this is Enneagram Life, and today we're talking about Enneagram Type 1 and self-flagellation. So basically, Enneagram Type 1 is attracted to self-flagellation or has a predilection for self-flagellation, is drawn towards it, probably mostly subconsciously. Anyway, so self-flagellation is hitting yourself, right? Hitting yourself on the back, just sitting there and whipping yourself. So I don't literally mean self-flagellation, that's a metaphor. And it's a pretty medieval word, right? So not a lot of people do that, like literally whip themselves anymore like that. It was kind of a monk or a priest thing back in the day, at least in the West. But these days, it's a good metaphor, self-flagellation. That's a good metaphor for some form of self-imposed, painful, or at least uncomfortable activity. And yeah, so Enneagram Type 1 is drawn towards self-imposed, painful, or at least uncomfortable activities. More compared to the average Enneagram type. So it's really hot in here. I imagine I'm going to be wiping a lot of sweat off. Anyway, as an example of self-flagellation in the modern times, diet is a common way that people will self-flagellate with restriction. So the restriction will be the painful thing. So a lot of people have various restrictive diets, and on average, Enneagram Type 1s have those more than the other Enneagram types. So, like a lot of vegans will be Enneagram Type 1s more than average. And that's because they get off on the self-flagellation of that, of the restriction of being a vegan, and they like the ethical component of being a vegan. So they're drawn to both components, but there's other diets, right, which don't have ethical components. I remember when cholesterol was really feared, there was a lot of Type 1s that were really determined to avoid any food that was high in cholesterol. Things like that is what I mean by self-flagellation. Yeah, that's in terms of restriction. So, it's a self-imposed pain by restricting oneself. That's the pain, and it's self-imposed. And it's not just diet, like there's other activities. I knew a Type 1 who, during winter when it was really cold, would force himself to swim, and he didn't enjoy it. But he forced himself to do it, and this was his self-flagellation. So there's normally like other reasons why people say they're doing this. So the people that were restricting cholesterol, I mean, obviously not just the ones restricted cholesterol, but a lot of the ones did that. They wouldn't say they were doing it as a form of self-flagellation. Normally, they would say they were doing it because for the health benefits. But there is that other component there which draws them to seeking that particular form of health benefits. Like they could have gone to other activities for health benefits, but they went towards the activities more than average that required that self-imposed pain. Yeah. So what's the mechanism here? Like, why is the Enneagram Type 1 into self-flagellation? And it really comes down to mostly control. That control seeking. There's a control seeking, a lust for control that leads them into seeking self-flagellation more than average, because like everyone's kind of pain avoidant, right? I'm not saying that they're out there trying to get themselves hit by cars or something just to feel the pain. No, everyone's pain avoidant, but on average, they're going to be involved in more self-flagellation activities, and for that, because they're seeking that control. And so the mechanism of how they get that feeling of control, well, for example, I knew this Enneagram Type 1, and he was into fasting. And so he would do these 36-hour fasts. And he said that, he did them for the health benefits, and so that he really appreciated the food. Like that first bit of food he'd eat after his 36-hour fast, he'd really appreciate it more. And but there was self-flagellation was also a part of why he was into fasting. And so, like, if you think about it, like, this is the why of like how that gives him a sense of control. So the reason it gave him, this fasting guide, a sense of control, like, if you think about it, during that 36 hours while they're fasting, they have the ability to deny themselves that next bit of food, or to permit themselves that next bit of food. And that's the control, that ability to deny or permit this to themselves. So it gives them this feeling of control. And if you think about control, like, control generally has two components. So it's that choice, right? And so in this example, it's that choice to permit the food or deny the food. So that choice, that's the first part that's giving him that sense of control. And then the second part that's giving him that sense of control is the effect of the choice. So, like, how big is the effect of your choice? If you were doing a 5-hour fast, the effect of a piece of food after that, the first piece of food, it's not going to be as massive as in a 36-hour fast. The effect of that first piece of food is going to be a lot bigger. So the bigger effect that your choice makes, so these are the two components of that feeling of control. They're getting that feeling of control because they make the choice, and that choice has a big effect. And within that, so the size of the effect is the moderating factor of the effect. The moderating factor of the choice is like how, when, why, who. Like, if you can control those factors of the choice, you have more choice. So you can choose to just make something happen or not happen, or determine if something happens or doesn't happen. That's the choice. But can you choose when, where, why, how, who, all of that associated with the choice? So the more control of the choice, the more control and total you have, and the bigger effect that your choice makes, the bigger sense of control you have. And so these 36-hour fasts gave this guy this sense of control, because he has that ability to deny himself, to choose, and he has the ability to permit himself, to break the fast, to eat that next bit of food. Anyway, so that's pretty much how the mechanism works, of how they get that feeling of control from self-flagellation. I mean, there is other components, but that is a major component, that sense of how they get the sense of control, and to how the sense of control relates to self-flagellation. And this comes across in Type 1 behavior, like, on so many levels, even really small everyday levels. Like, often the Type 1 is the type of person that, with their tube of toothpaste, they're going to cut it open so they can get every last speck of toothpaste out of that before they chuck it away. And yes, part of that is just they're cheap, right? And they get that benefit of that money that they save by going through less toothpaste tubes. There's that, and there's that sense of control that just comes from having more money, and there's that just benefit of having more money. and type 1s are known to be very cheap, but also like it's about they choose when it's time to buy the next tube of toothpaste. It's not up to gravity, it's not up to the design of the toothpaste tube. No, they will go to that extreme, do that thing which most people would consider uncomfortable or painful or not worth it. So take that extra effort, do that extra hardship of cutting it open and getting that piece of that last little bit out. Because they're even getting, as a form of self-flagellation to some extent, and they're getting that little bit of control out of that. Anyway, that's about it. Thank you.